Welcome back to Light Talk, where the paranormal and the supernatural is a part of our everyday lives. Today we have a fantastic guest. We just had a speechless experience with him just now. It was a very powerful meditation, but we're going to maybe pepper that in with our show today. But let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to hand the mic over to him. So, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Dana. My name is Jerome Martin. I am a metaphysical practitioner and a multidimensional coach. And so what that means is I train people in activating their light body and developing their psychic senses, all the clear senses to see, feel, know, and be in tune with these different dimensions. And so through those experiences, I have, had contact with different extraterrestrials, different descended masters, angels, all these different things that have helped me develop my light body and help me train not only myself and others. And so I've taken my direct experiences, the way that they've happened to me, and then I've sort of reverse engineered that to bring that forward, then to help others have those same types of experiences to develop their light bodies as well.
That's it was very awesome what you do. It's I saw people I didn't, and especially two of them, two out of them was like very not expected. They were not expected. Android and Bee Honey was not expected.
It's interesting when we have these experiences, what we expect it to be like versus what actually happens are typically, vastly different. And, the beings that show up, like I was telling you before, I'll say this again, they are related through your genetics. Humans, we are genetic hybrids. We are hybridized by a bunch of different species of extraterrestrials. And so when we go up into these higher dimensional spaces on these light ships, when we come in contact with these beings are connected to us through our DNA, and that's how they're able to transmit and receive information is through, our genetics. And this is why when they connect with us, these upgrades that they do are actually physical genetic upgrades. The different programs that they put in, when those become active, they then change our DNA, right? So our DNA has different markers, and it's like switches where they can turn on and off. It's the epigenetic DNA. When we come in contact with them, they will switch these things on and off, which typically gives us greater access to different abilities.
Oh, yeah, and it's definitely felt it. I mean, you could definitely feel where they were working, what they were working with, and how strong it was. It was pretty amazing.
Mhm.
Pretty amazing of what happened. I mean, the energy just goes all the way through, and you see these beings, and a couple of them were like very, almost very vivid. The more I spoke with them, it was the more they resonated, more they showed themselves. It was pretty cool.
Yeah,
It was very cool.
when it comes to how we actually perceive them, it can happen in different ways. So some of the beings, they're like non-physical light beings, and so sometimes when we first, come in contact with them, they seem like silhouettes of light or a different shape, etc. And then other ones will have features like you or I do, where we can very clearly see that this is, an extraterrestrial, and it really has to do with, the dimensional bandwidth that they're occupying. And so some of them are outside of duality, where they're not male or female. They can be androgynous, or they can even, like we encountered, they can be, a being made of light. And so there's all sorts of different variations of the way that they show up.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was very, very awesome. So if anybody out there wants to have this experience, you'll do it. I mean, it's a pretty cool experience and mind opening. Yeah. Yeah.
It definitely can change your perception of,
Mhm.
what we know as reality, because most people are, when in day-to-day life, we're experiencing life through single vector consciousness, which means what we're seeing out of our eyes is our reality. Most people aren't having multidimensional experiences on a daily basis outside of the dream state. When we go into the dream state and we shift our brain waves into, these different bandwidths, this is when we then, we fall asleep. That's shifting from alpha and beta down into theta, delta, etc. And when we shift into that is when we then experience our dream state. And so dream states are multidimensional experiences, but but we typically don't have the same I don't want to say control, but we're not like consciously active. It's more of like a passive where it's like happening to us for the majority of us. And so not everyone is having these types of experiences. And so when we have them, we typically think it to be different than it actually is. And so, it can sort of be startling or sort of like, wow, I didn't expect that to be like that until it is.
Right. Yeah, it was really, really amazing to you get to see a little bit of the ship. At least I saw a little bit of the ship that just kind of gave me a gist of what it looked like. No real detail for me, but it was a gist of what it was. And going into the interview room, I guess you would call it. Going into that was really awesome. And then going up into the gold beam, it was amazing because you were the center of attention, and then you're connecting with all these that are around you lower. I mean, so I was looking down on them, which was kind of weird in itself, but it was just really cool. It was just really super cool. I thank you for
Yeah,
that.
and
I mean,
so
that's pretty cool.
you're You're welcome. I'm glad to be able to facilitate. This is what I do on a daily basis. So I love being able to share this with people because a lot of people that are resonating with the whole star seed phenomena that is going on right now. Really, what's happening is we are becoming aware and conscious of the fact that we are from somewhere else, and our soul is connected to these different places, and that our genetics are as well. And so it's the inner knowing that there's more out there. And so this is what happened with me, and that this practice, that you experience today is part of the disclosure movement. Everyone thinks that disclosure is going to be these big ships coming out of the sky and like this big mass thing, but that's honestly not what's going to happen anytime soon, because humanity as a whole are not ready for that, and not everyone is ready for these types of experiences. However, disclosure is happening on an individual level. It happened to me, and then I've become a conduit for others, where those that are ready, and that it's being called, they're basically being called to this. Those are the ones that are ready for these types of experiences. And it's happening on a multidimensional level, which means that it's happening in a different state of consciousness, where a part of, or a fractal of your consciousness is able to go into a higher dimensional space, these light ships and these different containers, to then have this direct contact. And so this is just how it's been happening on an individual level. And this is why more and more of the population are waking up, because certain people are having these experiences, and then through the vibrational resonance, it's like a vibrational contagion. When your energy body begins to grow and begins to radiate a certain frequency, when you come in contact with others, it starts to rub off, and the frequency harmonizes. And so it's a massive thing happening on a global planetary level, just not all at once. It's like a slow roll of how this is coming out into the population.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. And I think it'll be very helpful, just getting this information and confirming more of what I have been kind of going through lately a little bit. And so it was really eye-opening to get that information yet another time. So it's pretty amazing. And the way part of what he does when he gets you there is he does light language. That was really pretty cool. That was cool in itself. And I was like, wait, that was awesome. I love
Yeah,
listening to
so
light
so
language.
the light language, the way that they've explained it to me, and the way I was taught in this, is light language is a transmission of consciousness. It's not something that we speak back and forth to have a conversation. It's more like a carrier signal. And so there are certain light codes or certain streams of consciousness that are imbued in this light language. And so as the light language comes out, it's delivering a payload of consciousness that you recognize on a soul level. And so for me, when I'm doing these different activations, or when I do light language activations, that's something completely different, because there's a whole process of DNA activation that I do with that. But specifically for this event, I use it for quantum entanglement. So when I connect to you, I'm able to connect through the light language. When you hear the sounds, it creates a quantum entanglement. Then when we anchor and activate these energetic temples, the light language will do that as well. I use it to send like access codes that give you access to the ship. That's another way that I'm able to transfer. So the light language itself is a multi-purpose tool of consciousness that does a bunch of different things based on the intention of it. And so it's been an invaluable tool that they've shared with me that allows me to gain very quick access to someone's energy field or connect us or plug different things in. And so that's just been a powerful tool in my tool belt that these beings have given to me.
Yeah, it's very powerful. It's very amazing stuff. I mean, I know I have several friends now with the light language, and it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Um, you have been um in contact with the ETs multiple times and everything. Can you share some of the stories that you've connected with them?
Yeah, yeah. So how did this all happen? How did I get the ability to connect others with extraterrestrials? Like, where did this come from? Yeah, that's a very good question. And so, my journey started in 2015. I was on my way to Sedona, Arizona. I was driving from across the country from Chicago, and my first ET experience was an abduction experience. And so I was driving through the desert, and it was approximately around 11 o'clock is what I would estimate it at because we had stopped and then we're driving and it had just gotten dark. So it was a couple hours after dark. And I'm driving through New Mexico, and over the top of the car, I saw what I thought was a red shooting star, like shoot over the top of the car. And so I'm like looking at it, and then when it shot, it made a right-hand turn, and then it shot again. And I remember seeing it turn, like, turn abruptly. And then when it shot, my eyes like locked onto it, and it was like I was in this like beam of light where I was just like focused on this light. And I remember as it was happening, I remember saying out loud, "That's weird." And then I heard echo in my head, "That's weird. That's weird. That's weird. I just got like echoing over and over as I'm staring at this red light. And then when it stopped and the light was gone, I'm driving still, but now it's like the sun was coming up and it was like dawn and the mountains were on the other side and I was like not even on the same road and I had lost, hours of time because it had just gotten dark and now the sun's coming up. So there was a bunch of time missing. And at the time I wrote it off as thinking like, oh, maybe I thought maybe that I imagined that, or I thought that, maybe I was tired and just all these things were going through my mind. I didn't consider it to be an extraterrestrial experience or even an abduction. And then later through regression therapy, I got those memories back that it was the Greys that came and grabbed me and they took genetic material, semen, spinal fluid, and then they were doing things on my light body, and that was my first experience that I had, and it was traumatic enough to where I didn't remember it, right? And so that was my first actual like physical ET experience. And then a few years later, then I had an experience where I was in Sedona again, a different time. And this time when I was there, I remember there was a friend that I would always connect with when I would go, and I knew he moved away, but I'm at one of my favorite places and I'm there, and just something in my head tells me, like, you got to call this person. And so I call him and I'm like, hey, I know you already moved to California. And he's like, actually, I moved back 2 days ago. And if you want to see a real UFO, come to this address in 45 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I want to see a UFO. And so, I pack my stuff up and I'm going over to this place. And, I'm very, where you have to like seeing is believing and I'm skeptical and all these different things. And so when I'm going there, I'm thinking like, what am I actually going to see? And like, what's this going to be like? I'm just sort of thinking it over my head. And when I get there, we get to this guy's house, and this person is a UFO tour guide. This is his job. He takes people out to see UFOs for a living. And so I get there, and he starts pulling out all of these night vision goggles and like laser beams and all this different stuff. And he's telling us like we gotta wait just a little bit longer until it gets dark, and he's telling us all these different things. And I'm like, all right, so how long am I going to be looking up at the sky tonight before I see something that I tell myself is a UFO because I want to believe that this is what I'm out here to see? And so, like the skeptic is kicking in. And so we're out there, and there was probably 10 of us out there. And so we each have our goggles and laser beams, and he goes this whole spiel about, that planes are flashing and you can't see satellites and all these different things, showing us like what isn't a UFO first before we actually start. And so I'm thinking like, how long is it going to take before, we see something, etc. And then within minutes, it might have been within 60 seconds, I don't know, but right away he like, points at this thing. He's like, oh, like there's one, and you see this thing way up in the sky like by the stars, and you see this thing, it's moving and it's like going like this, it's like zigging and zagging, just moving around. And he's like, all right, so this is a UFO. And so it's an unidentified object. He's like, but let me tell you why I think it's, extraterrestrials. I'm like, let's hear it. And so then he says, just like how I'm talking to you, he goes, can you power up or dim your lights for our friends? And then this light gets real bright, then it gets dark, then it gets real bright, and then it gets dark. And I'm like, no way is this guy talking to this speck way up in the sky and it is responding like that. I'm like, no way. But then, the skeptic kicks in and I'm like, well, he did point a laser beam near it and we don't know what the secret space program, or we don't know how advanced, technology is. And so I'm thinking, maybe this isn't a UFO. Maybe it's, someone that's can listen and yada yada. And so I'm like, all right. But then it happens over and over. He's like, oh, there's another one. Talking to this one, it's flashing, and then talking to this one, it's flashing, and this goes on for like another like 45 minutes, and I'm just like, man, something's going on here, but like I don't know what it is. And then so then I sort of like everyone's over here and I sort of like turn around. I'm like in my own area, like sort of just in the sky by myself. And so then I see an even bigger object. This is like 4 times the size of the others. And so this time I don't point a laser beam at it. I'm just staring at it. And this time I don't say it out loud. I just say it in my mind. Can you power up or dim your lights? And then this thing gets real bright, real dark, and then turns into a beam of light and is gone. And I'm just like, all right, no way did the thing just like, so it's reading my thoughts. And so I'm like, so before it was like laser beam and words, and that was sort of like, I don't know. And then this time it happening with just my intentions and my thoughts. I was like, okay, that is beyond what I think, humans can be capable of, or like, that sort of was beyond a reasonable doubt where like there's something's happening here. And so that was my second, physical ET experience. And then from there, it transitioned into, what's happening now where, it's happening energetically multidimensional. And then, fast forward a few years later, then I'm doing construction at the time and I was a superintendent and we were building landfills, and landfills are out in the middle of nowhere. They're not really by cities. And so, we're out in the middle of nowhere. I was in Michigan at the time. And on my lunch break, after I eat my lunch, I would, take a little nap. And so it started happening where I thought this was strange dreams at first. I would be in my truck and I close my eyes and then, it's daylight. It's not at night. But when I opened my eyes, this first time it happened, there was 5 blue silhouettes, 5 blue beings. They were like light beings. I didn't recognize them as extraterrestrials at first because they're just like, silhouettes of light, like that way it wasn't scary and I just didn't know what was going on. But I saw these 5 silhouettes, surrounding me. And as I'm looking at them, they all sort of reach their arms and they touch me. And as they touch me, I hear this noise like wub 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 wub. And then from there, I'm like seeing myself like going up this like tube of light, and I'm seeing space and I'm seeing stars, and this tube of light is going up into at the time what I thought was a floating city. I didn't associate it with like a spaceship or anything like that. It just looked like a floating city. And so, then I'm in this space. And if you've ever seen the TV show American Ninja Warrior Challenge, where it's like an obstacle course, and these guys need to make it across this very elaborate obstacle course and then hit a buzzer. It reminded me of that because I was in this space and these blue beings, there was like this big open like pit, and there was like these platforms across this pit. And the first thing they did was they connected to me. I felt like this like energy where it just felt like the volume was like raising up. I don't know how to explain it other than like it felt like something was shifting and something was like expanding, and it reminded me of like volume turning up, even though there wasn't noise, but that was the best way I could describe it. And then they were communicating with me telepathically. And so it wasn't with words. It was like they would show me pictures and then I would just know what the pictures meant. And so it reminded me of like if you were watching a movie and you fast forward and you saw like the movie just like jumping from scene to scene, it was like that. But then somehow I knew everything that it was about. So it was like a download of information and I knew all about what they were showing me and I didn't understand it at first. But so that's how it first started happening. And they were explaining to me that they were going to show me how to develop my light body and that they were going to train me. And I didn't even know what that meant at first. Once again, I thought this was a strange dream. And so the first thing that they did was they connected to me and then they showed me like, here, this is how you like float yourself up. And so they showed me how to float myself, up off the ground in this arena. And then they said, okay, now you can float. Now we want you to move yourself with your intention across these platforms. And so I floated myself up and moved myself from platform to platform. And then when I was done, they were happy. They were really happy that I could do it. And then that was like, then after that, like boom, like I'm back in the truck. I'm like, oh my God, what a strange dream with these blue beings. And then this kept happening over the course of months where, and it was like random. I'd have other dreams and different things would happen. And then once again, I'm in the truck and I would be, getting ready to take my nap, and then boom, these beings would show up, and I'm in this tube of light, and back in this arena. And then next, they were like, okay, you floated yourself across. Now we're in the next phase. So this time they materialized like this orange cube of light. So it was like an orange, like glowing cube. And they said, okay, you saw how we connected to you, and you were able to lift yourself up. Now we want you to connect to this cube. And so they showed me how to connect from my heart to this cube. And they're like, the same way you lifted yourself, now lift the cube up. And so then I lifted the cube up. And once I could lift the cube, they're like, okay, now move this cube across the platforms. And so I did that. I lifted it up and I'm moving it from one side of the arena to the other. And when I made it across, they were super excited. They were happy. They're like, you're doing it, And so then that was then it would end. And then, another one would happen where I'm up there and same procedure where it was just like random time, and it was just, it seemed what seemed like random. And so then I'm up there and they're like, okay, you moved yourself, you moved the cube. Now I want you to lift yourself up, float yourself, and then float the cube. Now move you and the cube across the platforms. I'm like, oh, what strange games that these things have me doing. And so I just continue to do it, and I move myself in and the cube across. And when I was done, they're like just happiness again. They're like, you did it. And so then it started, like, that was when it was happening, when I thought it was dreams. Then it transitioned from, and I thought it was dreams because it was like happening to me, where I was there and I was present, but like I didn't choose when it was happening. It was just like seemed like random. And it started like that. And then it started happening during meditation, where I'd be meditating and then just, being silent, and then boom, I'm up in this space. And now, and this is where I felt like it was like grooming, because at first they were like blue silhouettes of light, but then as it progressed, I'm up in this space that was like this floating stadium's arena. And now when I'm there, the blue beings are now, they have features where like this is very clearly an extraterrestrial. These blue, like this is an extraterrestrial, and this is a very clearly a ship, right? And so I'm like, huh. So, but I also knew that it was the same, right? It's not like I was confused that it was different. Like they felt the same, the way they communicated was the same. It was all the same. And so this is where they started. It was more upgrades, more light body activations, and they were showing me how to communicate with the ship. They showed me that the ship has a consciousness, like it's a sentience. It has the ability that when you interact with it, and they were showing me that the ship moves. They don't fly it like you drive a car. They fly it with intention through consciousness, and they can move it through time and space. And so they showed me how to interact with the ship, how to, use the different features. And there's so many different technologies up there, from, these healing pods to all this awesome stuff. It's a whole nother story. But they were showing me how to interface with the ship. And then at this point, they were explaining to me that they are called the Arcturians, and that they're from Arcturus. And so, they started getting more and more familiar with them. And they were showing me that, now that I've got a grip over how to use my light body to, how to come here, how to engage with them telepathically, how to connect with the ship, and float the block, all these different things. They were saying that was all training, and that now I'm ready to be able to do the next phase. And so they were telling me that you can move yourself, you can move the block, and you can communicate with us in the ship. So now it's time for you to start bringing other people up here. They said the same way that you can connect to that block and move it, you can connect to other people and bring their light body into this space to commune with us, and that you can facilitate this correspondence, or facilitate this procedure where other people can then come connect with us. And so this is where this whole thing started, where they gave me the ability, which I already had, is just I didn't know that, but they turned it on and showed me how to use it. And this is where now I've been spending the last several years bringing people up into these light ships, and having this direct contact with these different extraterrestrials. And at first it was the Arcturians, but then I realized that this space holds and occupies all these other beings as well. And the Arcturians were there because that's what I connected with at first, because those are my genetic relatives when it comes to the DNA. And so this is where that came from. But now when I go up there, there are, all sorts of different beings. And, I've connected with so many other parts of myself, and my other genetic relatives, the Pleiadians, Sirians, Andromedans, there's mantis beings, there's all these other, a whole plethora of these beings, including the Lyrans and all this different stuff. And so now when we go up there, the beings that come forward are whoever comes up there with me, their genetic correspondents are the beings that are there. And so like when we went up there today, there was an insect being, there was, different there was different green ET beings, there was an Andromeda, and there's all these different beings because those are your genetic relatives. And so now it's up to the person that I'm bringing and facilitating for the beings that show up. They're not my genetic counterparts. They're the other persons. And so this is how this whole thing was born. And they were telling me that that I am a bridge between the dimensions from them to humanity, and that this is how this disclosure is happening. That people are going to continue to come up, and what's awesome about it is it's not just an experience where you go up and you see a thing. The act of engaging with them and the way that they send the information that turns on the different features of your light body, the way that what it takes to engage them, the psychic faculties and the capacity. When that happens, it turns on with you. And so when you come back, you're now different. You're, different things and you heal, whether it's the shadow or different parts, but also your ability to sense, see, feel, and communicate is all turned on. And so you get to leave with as an upgraded version. And so it's not just like going watching a movie. It's, you're engaging and using parts of yourself that you didn't even know typically, that you have. And this is the next stage of our human evolution.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great knowing that I've taken another step upwards and more energized now. I it's a great feeling.
Yeah, and it's also I know that this just happened, and it's sort of like a lot and even hard to like articulate at first because it's just like what was that? But it gets easier over time, and your body gets used to it, and the DNA as it upgrades is able to hold more, and so it's really cool. And so this has been a practice that I've been then now doing for the last several years, and I've brought in hundreds, not 1,000 yet, but hundreds of people up into these light shifts.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. If you guys have any chance of doing this, it was amazing. It was really amazing. A lot of information, a lot of work with your clairs. You really had to work with your clairs, and you get to see which ones are pretty strong and not as strong. Or, but it was great. It was so neat to be able to work with all of them like that. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and so it's interesting. Like we all have different clair senses, and typically, people don't really even understand how they work. And so the way that they describe it to me, it's like a muscle that has atrophied. If you never stood up and walked, if you were in a chair your whole life or a wheelchair, it's like those you're not even using your legs, and your light body is the same way. When you first start using it, like you haven't been, so it's atrophied, it's weak. And but when you start using it, it turns on, and then you start, using it like a muscle, it gets stronger very quickly. And so with that, you have the light body, which allows you to move, but then the clairsenses is how it engages and how you're able to sense with it. And so a lot of people, they say like, oh, I'm an empath, but really that's just one of your clairsenses. It's the ability to sense emotional energy through your psychic faculties. And so as we go up there, different things turn on. And a lot of people are like, oh, I can't visualize. I'm not clear. I don't have this clear. I don't have this clear. But then you soon realize that as you start using them, they turn on, right? Just because you haven't doesn't mean you can't. And it's a process of just using it. It's like the eyes that were never open, then out of nowhere open, and you can see with them. And so really, it's interesting, and I think it's really cool that they give us the opportunity to grow and develop in ways that we wouldn't any other way. Because a lot of people think that this is what I've got, and really we are so much more than we believe we are. And so these direct experiences foster that and give us like literally a roadmap on how to become more.
Yeah. And the way you do it is he works through all of those clairs. He's like, what do you see? Do you feel
Mhm.
anything? Do you hear anything? Do you see? He goes through all of this stuff to trying to open all of that up. And that
Mhm.
was really, I enjoyed that. I appreciated that sense of pushing all my senses. Yeah,
And
it
that's
was,
that's really important. That's really important because if we don't engage them, they don't turn on. And if I use my psychic senses to tell you what I'm seeing or what I'm experiencing, that doesn't give the opportunity for you to use yours. And this is why, with this whole thing, it's like, when I say that I'm a metaphysical personal trainer, it's like I am a guide where I show you how to do it, and then but you have to do the lifting, because if I were to lift the weight for you, you don't get stronger, right? If I show you the way and how to do it, and then you do it, then you develop. And so, it gives you an opportunity to engage in a way where you get to grow. Otherwise, then I'm just the channel and I'm just telling you what the experience is, etc. And that doesn't do the same for you. If you're just hearing the information versus experiencing it firsthand.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a couple of them I wasn't right on it. I didn't get the full picture, but he's like, "Oh, I think there's more here than you think."
Mhm.
So he's like he kind of helps out a little bit. And then once we connected to the beings, it was they started to come to life for me. So the third eye started popping in. You get to see them more clearly. And then you get to the clear audience. You start kind of hearing them in a
Mhm.
cognitive kind of
Mhm.
way,
It's
if
it's
that
interesting
makes
because
sense.
it's not words like you or I are speaking. It's like you hear it like an inner knowing where it's like
Right.
where it's interesting because it's not auditory, but like you still hear it in your head like you're getting a sentence. And so it's interesting the way the clear senses work. But yeah, they all start
Mhm.
turning on. And it's like when they communicate with you, the senses that are used are what's best to process the information. And so sometimes it's better to see it and know it. Other times it's better for you to hear it as though it's your own thought. And there's a mixture of them, but really it's about us how we can process what we are shown. Some people are better at the visual. For me, it always comes in like an image, but then I just know, like I see the images and I just know what they mean. And so everyone is different in the way that they process, but they give you an opportunity to really tap into those different parts of yourself. And it's for me, it's always been a beautiful experience. And even facilitating, I get so much out of it because, being there to be a way shower and a trailblazer for others, really, really makes me feel like I'm walking in my purpose.
Yeah, and not only the clairs, you're working with the chakras too. Those chakras were just like going crazy with me. So it's like that was really great to feel because that helped me realize more of what's going on when I'm feeling these things on a normal day. It's like now I realize something's happening.
And yeah, and
That
so
it's
it's
yeah.
it's a good confirmation because when we're having this multidimensional experience, part of your consciousness is up in this other dimension where you're able to have this experience. But in the physical body, when they're working on you, it's not just you're seeing images, you're also feeling it in the body. There's things happening, like you said, the chakras light up, and when they're connecting with you and they're doing these different upgrades, or they're opening this chakra, or they're clearing this, that, and the other, the body feels it. And so it's a full sensory, not just an image or a vision, but you feel all these different things in the body happening. And it's just more of a confirmation that these different things are happening. And it's interesting because it's different for everybody. The way that you experienced your session today, someone else's would be vastly different, where what they experienced would be, completely tailored to them and what their needs are. And so it's cool. It's cool to me because every time I do this, the people get a different experience.
Yeah, it is really, really awesome. And starts off with going through like your
The shadow
shadow
work.
work, the shadow
Mhm.
work. And he goes through from age 1 to 13. And amazing. That was just crazy as all get out, but it was so powerful.
Yeah, so that they showed me before we can go up on the light ship. You can think of it at the airport. Before you get on the plane, you have to go through the TSA, and they screen you for contraband. And so this is where you're not allowed to go into these higher dimensions with concealed trauma. And so the shadow work is this procedure that they showed me that needs to happen first to go through and pull out any of these densities or any of these traumas that are creating a fractalization. And so this procedure is a way to pull things forward to process before we can go into the light ship, because you're not allowed to go up there without going through that process, because the senses just don't activate or turn on. It's actually the trauma that we endure that fractures the consciousness and shuts off these clairsenses. And so this procedure, this pre-boarding procedure, is absolutely necessary before we're able to bring our consciousness into these higher dimensions. And this is just it's just the process, and that process in itself is awesome because when we go through that, we're able to, a lot of times they're repressed memories. So it's like we don't even remember that happened to us, but they pull up and show you through your cellular memory the different things that you've experienced and what you've gone through. That way you can see it again. And now through an adult lens and able to process those adult emotions, you can then process those out because that's what happens to us. When we're a small child and we go through experiences where the emotions are not we're not able to process them. It's like they get put into a hidden folder and they get saved for later. But most of us don't realize that's even there, and we never get to process those. And so and it's like a fast track. It's like whatever's there shows up. Like it literally just pulls up like a Google search and shows you what you need to see. We work through it, and then after that, we're able to go up.
Yeah, and he's very patient. You're very patient with me. And some of them was like took forever, it felt like, to connect with my inner child and all of this, but it sure worked out in the end. I mean, it was just, yeah, it really tells a story. It really does tell a story. And I didn't realize how far back some things went. And
Yeah.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, the way I described that portion of it is you can think of the child's cartoon, Peter Pan. And in that cartoon, Peter Pan is looking for his shadow, right? And so when he finds the shadow, then he gets the shadow to stick. And once he gets that shadow to stick, then he gets his happy thought and then off to Neverland. It's the same thing. Once we are able to integrate the shadow, then we are able to move through the dimensions. The trauma and the shadow are like the chains that bind our consciousness into the lower realms. And once we're able to bring that back in and become whole, that's when we get our ability to then move back into these higher realms. And so it's an integral part of this whole ascension process.
Yeah. Yeah. He goes from the very bottom clear up, man. It was pretty, what else can I say? I mean, it was very educational, very learning, very healing, and to be able to see my family up there was so cool. Yeah.
It really is an interesting experience. And like we had said,
Yeah.
it's like that's not what I expected it to be.
Mm-mm.
And it ends up, showing you what it is. Because the idea of something is different than the actual experience. And like you said, if anyone is interested in having this experience with me, you can find me on my website. It's the site, JeromeMartin3.com is my website, and you can book there. You can also scan this QR code that will bring you to my website. And you can also follow me on social medias. I got a bunch of information there with testimonials and all the different stuff of other people that have had this experience as well. And so if anyone is being called, anyone's feeling the star seed movement and feeling like they want to connect with their galactic family, this is what this is for.
Yeah. Very interesting, very cool, very, like I say, educational, very opening, because you really opened up a lot of chakras, a lot of emotions, a lot of um clairs, and just the whole spectrum. I mean, you just opens up everything. So yeah, great
Thank
job for
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, you do all kinds of other things. You touch with the sounds, you do the light work. Um, you have obstacles for other people. I mean, tell us some more of what you do.
Yeah, so this was just the first thing that happened, right? So this is what happened to me, and then I've recreated it for other people to have the same experience. But this is like it's like you're opening up a doorway and exposing yourself to the higher dimensions of consciousness, and then after that, I train people in metaphysical science and in this multidimensionality, which means I after one experience, we can continue to develop the light body, right? So all the things that happen at first, they can seem arbitrary or sort of seem abstract, but there is a lot of meaning behind it. But typically, it's hard because the clairsenses are new, or the ability to use them is new, and so sometimes not all the pieces are there. And so this whole training process, after we activate the DNA, which is reconnecting all of the DNA strands and connecting to all these different stargates, after that, all these things turn on. Then from there, we learn how to use the light body. So I have a whole procedure that I do, and it's one-on-one coaching and training where we go through and we learn how to activate the different parts of the light body, how to use it, how to, connect with the higher self, how to get the information flowing, how to get the light body moving, how to use it to project, how to use it to move into these other spaces, how to call, these different ascended beings forward to communicate with them, how to develop telepathy, how to, get them to share their gifts with you. Because these beings, when they come forward, they connect with you, they'll start sharing their gifts. A lot of people think that you just call angels and ask them to do a thing and this, that, and the other. Well, wouldn't it be awesome if you could get that ability from them? And they want to share it with you. You just have to be developed enough for them to, give you those gifts and abilities. And so it's a whole process of developing yourself by engaging with these higher dimensional Christed beings, and developing the light body. And so the stronger it gets, the more ability it gets. And it's like the training wheels come off. And the next thing you know, you're able to operate these different consciousness technologies. And it's a process, but it's a developmental process. And this is why I say I'm like a metaphysical personal trainer, because I'm going to show you what to do. I'm going to guide you through it. And I'm there to, basically spot you as you're lifting the weight to be able to do it on your own. Because going to somebody to have someone else do it for you all the time, that has limitations where everybody is capable of this. It's not just me, it's not just you. Everyone has the ability to develop their consciousness. Everyone has a light body, everyone has a third eye, everyone has their chakras, everyone has all these different things. It's just that they're not using, and they're not using them, and they think that their ability is limited. Well, what's limited is their perception of what they really are. And so, I'm here to guide people to be able to activate these things in themselves, because we're all capable. We're all God's children. We all have these innate abilities within us.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's fantastic. He did a great job, man. A great job. Really appreciate that. That was just amazing. I can't even say the words. All my guests always amaze me with what they do. You guys are all just absolute light workers. I mean, you're raising all everyone's energy just by what you do, and everyone's so different. It just
Mhm.
amazes me. Every show just amazes me.
Well, and this is why, they sort of showed me that we're all here on different missions and different paths, and we're all, we're all like snowflakes, where if we're all the same, there would be no, it's like if we're all the same, we all the same thing, like how do we learn? How do we grow? How do we evolve? Right. And so people
Right?
coming in with different abilities and different purpose allows us to grow in different ways. And this is where, why there's different teachers, and there's different people for every stage of the race. And this is where, there's new people coming in with new technologies, and it evolves and advances as we do, and it's such a cool process.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Oh, so you have any other stories you would like to tell us?
Yeah, so one of the most profound things that has happened to me, that I now facilitate for others, is having the DNA activated. So if anyone is unfamiliar with DNA activation, this is a process of reigniting the DNA strands. Most of humanity has about 3 to 3.5 DNA strands active, and so this is where the limit in the perception or limit in the ability comes in, because most of your DNA is off, right? Science says that 97% of the DNA is junk. Really, it's just off. And so as the DNA activates and we reconnect, we're able to receive these latent abilities that are within us. Each DNA strand is connected to one of the 12 stargates in the ascension spiral. And so as you reconnect them, you start streaming. And so they sort of showed me that we are basically biological supercomputers, and your DNA are like antennas, right? And so just like in a radio station, when you're flipping through the stations, it's like static, 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 and then boom, you hit a station and you start receiving the transmission. And that radio tower, wherever it's transmitting from, can be on the other side of the country. But somehow when you reach the station, through this harmonic resonance, the transmission comes through. Your DNA is the same way. It works through quantum entanglement, where it's connected to a stargate. And when we're able to fire up and activate that signal, we start receiving information. When we did that shadow work, the way that those images and those memories come up is through your genetic cellular memory. That's your DNA holds images and pictures. They show me that your eyes are biological cameras and the DNA is the film. So every time that your heart beats, whatever you're looking at is being time stamped. Boom, boom, boom. All those images are being saved on your cells. And that's like the hard drive, the local drive of your computer. Well, that just makes up a small part. You've got your genetic memories, which is your experiences, but then the experiences from past lives, other incarnations, all this other stuff that's very galactic, is stored somewhere else. Every time that you pass and your soul goes into a new body and you reincarnate, all those memories, it's like they get wiped and you get a new computer and you forget and you have to start all over. Well, those memories are somewhere and they go into these different stargates because we have been galactic a lot of lives as well. And so when you activate these DNA strands, it taps into your incarnational memory, which means like the cloud, right? All your memories are stored in like a cloud server. And so when the DNA activates, you start streaming and remembering these different past lives. You start remembering who you were in these different incarnations, where you're from, all these different things. And so the DNA activation has been one of the most powerful things for me. And I facilitate this as well, but to be able to get those memories back, to activate all these other parts of ourselves. And it's interesting because you start remembering these different versions of yourself. And when you remember them, the abilities turn on. You're like, oh yeah, telepathy. Oh yeah, telekinesis. Oh yeah, these different things because you remember it. And when you have the recollection of it, it does something to the DNA. It literally affects your it's the part of the DNA. They're like little switches that are on and off. And when you remember it, it's like it switches on. And now it's called epigenetic memory in the DNA. And when these switches come on, the DNA becomes active and you get access to these abilities because you remember who you are. And then boom, it's like, oh yeah, now I remember this ability that I have. And it happens that fast. But that is one of the most powerful things you can do is get your DNA activated, which leads to this very quick ascension process.
That was a cool process too of what you did. You know,
Mhm.
you taken the cord. It was the cord that you wrapped around the center of Earth, and
Mhm. Yeah,
then
so
you
so yeah,
unbound it.
so that process that's not DNA activation. That's just your connecting your light body anatomy. So we actually we see ourselves as a as an individual, but we are just an incarnation. And your soul comes down in what is known as a monad, and it's this energetic pillar. And your monadic structure houses all of the other incarnations that your soul is currently incarnated in. And it starts off, from source, it starts off as a Rishi consciousness, and then that Rishi breaks down into 12 avatar consciousnesses, and then those 12 avatars, each of those break into 12 oversouls. Each of those break into 12 souls that then break into 12 incarnate identities. So you're talking about thousands and thousands of fractals of your soul. And so those all exist in this pillar, this monadic pillar. And so most people are so disconnected from it that they don't ever experience it. And by plugging it back in is the first step. It's like we're a computer that never came out of the box. We're not plugged into the power source. We're not plugged into the ground. We're not plugged into the internet. And so that whole process that we first started with is, reconnecting ourselves into basically the energetic matrix that allows us to even perceive these things. And so that's like the protocol on how we get the senses active and fired up. The DNA activation is a whole other thing that's like an whole other procedure that all these things turn on, but all of these things are the basic first steps on how we even reach those parts of ourselves.
Yeah, all I can say is amazing. I felt it everywhere. I felt it in. I think I felt every chakra. Yeah, yeah, pretty amazing. Pretty
Well, thank you.
amazing. Pretty
Thank
awesome
you.
stuff you do. Yeah. Again, if anybody is curious about this or is wanting to work with him, I suggest him. He's a great guy. He's worked really well with me and he's very patient. He just lets it go.
Just you have to just surrender to it, and that's really what it is. Is it's a active and passive, right? So there's a sending and a receiving, and we just need to be in that flow. And this is something that everyone can tap into. It's when this first started happening, people are like, oh well, you're special, like you can do that. I'm like, well, it's not even about that. It's about I know how to do it. It's not that I have an ability that other people don't. It's just about knowing how it works. And when we connect to it, then you realize that there's more to yourself than you've ever really imagined.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate everything that you did today with me. It's been an amazing ride. I loved it. I loved it. Um, is it again, you can reach Jerome and at his website. So go
Mhm.
ahead and check him out and see what else he does. I mean, I can't imagine doing more. That was just amazing stuff. So, um, yeah, and go ahead and check out my website at lighttalkwithdana.com and see what's going on with me. And we will hopefully have you back again someday. Talk about
Yeah, I
some
would, I would, I would
other
love to come back.
experiences of yours.
I would love to. We can have another different experience and talk about that as well. And if anybody is in the LA area, I speak at Conscious Life Expo, and so in February, anybody that is going to be at Conscious Life Expo, you can find me there, where I'll be doing live DNA activation for the group. And so for those of you that go to that event, you'll be able to see me there as well.
Yeah, go check that out. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And if anybody else out there has any stories you would like to share, let me know. Email me at lighttalk423@gmail.com, and we will talk with everybody next time. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for being
Thank
on the
you.
show.
Thank you.